Looking to start a podcast but don't know where to begin? Look no further. The team at Dodge Media Productions has 20 years of experience as podcast listeners and observing the industry and 8 years experience in podcast production. We can help you take your podcast from idea to fruition, and we'll make the process seamless and easy. We'll help you with everything from recording and editing to hitting the charts on Apple Podcasts. So what are you waiting for? Contact us today and let's get started. DodgeMediaProductions.com.
You're listening to Dodge Movie Podcast. Your hosts are Christy and Mike Dodge, the founders of Dodge Media Productions. We produce films and podcasts, so this is a podcast about films. Join them as they share their passion for filmmaking.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Dodge Movie Podcast. This is episode 178, and we are going to be talking about Groundhog Day, but only once.
Good one.
Mom joke. We watched this on Apple for $3.99. It is from the year 1993. It is a Harold Ramis directed film. He also did Caddyshack, Stripes, Vacation, Ghostbusters, all the good 80s movies. It stars Bill Murray, Andy McDowell, Chris Elliott, and Stephen Toblowski, who played Ned.
That may be Toblowski's most famous role.
Yes, very much so.
But you know what's interesting about this film is it's hard to say Ramis' best film, but this is one of his best, right?
Definitely.
Incredibly rewatchable.
I'm sure people would pick Ghostbusters up there, but yes, definitely.
And yet, I don't think Bill Murray is that likable a person in real life. But it's just, and maybe not even his characters, but it's just, there's some magic about this role.
Yep, I would agree. The DP was John Bailey, who did 1980's American Gigolo, 1991's Search for Signs of Intelligence, and 93's In the Line of Fire. It was filmed in Woodstock, Illinois, and the writer was Danny Rubin and Harold Ramis.
Yeah.
It is a Columbia Pictures film, and the synopsis is, a narcissist, self-centered weatherman finds himself in a time loop on Groundhog Day. I've got 3 taglines for you.
Okay, all right. Lay 'em on me.
What would you do if you were stuck in the same day over and over? Anything you want and everything your heart desires.
No, I don't think that is accurate for the film or a good tagline.
It's too wordy.
Way too
I
wordy.
think too long.
Yeah.
He's having the worst day of his life over and over.
Okay. That's pretty good.
I like that one. How does it compare to this one? He's having the day of his life over and over again.
Not as good. The middle one is your winner.
I agree. Okay. Kick us off with your pickup line for Groundhog Day.
Somebody asked me today, Phil, if you could be anywhere in the world, where would you like to be? And I said to him, probably right here. Yeah, see?
That definitely supports your opinion.
Yeah, and it's a good line.
Mm-hmm. So interesting, Danny and Harold both said that they avoided exploring the truly dark side of film's time-lapsing, in which he could commit psychopathic actions without consequence. The examples being homicide, rape, torture, etc.
Right.
Because I guess there is part of, I think, all of us that if you feel like you have this invincibility of not having to...
No consequences for your actions.
Of your actions. Yeah, thank you. Because my brain just went blank. That's exactly what I wanted to say. That you would can I rob a bank? I think we would all start out with petty stuff, petty crimes. I would hope that I wouldn't go to the big deal crimes, but... I mean, I guess bank robbery is a felony, so I did kind of jump to the...
I think back to Pendulette's defense of not needing to take your children to church to learn to not murder people how many people do you want to murder?
Right.
And
I don't think I would go
I don't know that I would have a list of murdering. However, not paying for my meal, I'd probably do going and taking a car off the lot and just driving around joyriding. I might do that in that
especially
situation.
If I may end up in the slammer tonight, but I'm going to wake up in my bed tomorrow.
Right. So as long as I didn't get beat up over it, I could see me doing something like that. Maybe playing a prank that I thought was funny, but that I knew people would be upset about because tomorrow they wouldn't be upset. Mm-hmm. I don't know, run through town naked or who knows.
Because you don't like pranks.
I don't.
But yeah, you were just trying to think of, I know, I
Like,
guess what are the
could-
things, we probably shouldn't be recording the things that we would do if there were no consequences.
Right. That'll be subpoenaed in court in
Right.
10 years.
All right, back to the movie.
Yeah. But, it is interesting because I could see a different way to approach the time loop of looking into that, of, somebody who gets darker and darker. And I just, I don't. Like, I have to say, like, for me, like, maybe, going to a strip club or something that I would be embarrassed to do normally, I would okay, well, let me get, see what this is like.
Right.
I guess I'm pretty vanilla.
I think, they do kind of explore some dark things, which I think are true.
In a comedic way.
Because I think after a while, you would just be like, get me out of here. And if I have to, by way of suicide, to not trigger anybody, but, if that was the way that, I guess it just rang true to me that that's something that would cross someone's mind who is stuck in this time loop.
Yeah, and I think any character in literature that lives forever, they always talk about that. Do you get tired? And I don't know. But it's interesting, the thing I thought about was he learns to play the piano. And basically he's able to have years of practice on a few songs, right?
And does he retain that skill?
Well, that's the path I went down. So he couldn't write a novel because physically we see the pencil, it goes from broken to again. So it would have to be, he keeps his memory. So he could compose poetry or anything like that. He could have taken up painting, but it's the skill that you would keep. Compositionally, that would be very difficult, right, to remember an entire novel, but you would have the time.
I feel dumb admitting this, but I never realized that he retains the memory. Everyone else goes back to resets, but he doesn't, because when he meets Ned Ryerson every day, he has all those previous experiences with him. So that would make you even crazier, I think, that it wasn't just a new day, kind of a la 51 Dates. If you were Drew Barrymore's character and you're just waking up fresh each time.
Right.
But
see, that's where I think you would maybe go to the diner enough times to know when somebody's going to drop something. But I think you would go many, many different places to try to add spice to it.
And then we see him kind of, he does it, I thought, with Andy McDowell's character, but I thought he does it with that other woman where he goes out on a date with her to find out things and then uses that information then the next day to be more appealing to her.
Yeah, he does that to Andy McDowell as well. And this is the part where it is veering a little bit toward the dark, because I think everybody would feel that's unfair.
Manipulative.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but in the world of the internet, you might be able to argue somebody could mine somebody's Facebook or Instagram and find out their favorite cocktail and those other pieces of data. And would people consider that as skeezy to do that? And is there a level of mining that is acceptable? Who knows? But there are some interesting philosophical issues that underpin this, even though it's not really a philosophical kind of movie.
Right, exactly. Some of the acting choices that Bill Murray made is, according to Harold Ramis, most of the time when he would try to explain a scene to Bill would interrupt him and just go, just tell me, good Phil or bad Phil? That sounds like very Bill
That does sound very Bill Murray-esque. Yeah, and I credit to Toblowski, because his character serves kind of to highlight the grain in Bill Murray's Phil, because he's just, you want to punch Ned immediately, right? And he really lands it in that kind of way. He's not like evil, but he's just irritating, right? Yeah. That life insurance salesman, and does it with such a smile on his face. I thought it was super well done. He makes the film. He's not in it for very many minutes,
right?
But he really is a memorable part of the film. Great work.
Yeah. So fill me in on what things stood out for you in the cinematography, in the plot, the things that we maybe haven't covered already.
From a story perspective, in retrospect, 2020 hindsight is brilliant. Groundhog Day. Like it makes sense to us after the fact.
It's such a fun, wholesome setting too.
Yeah. And so, by the way, the groundhog is also known as the woodchuck, which gives us the how much wood would a woodchuck walk. But like you said, it's set there at that gazebo, and they've got the Pennsylvania waltz playing, and people
the polka music goes throughout this whole film,
and they're singing along, and there's baked goods at one point, and it's
just
winter.
Good down home fun.
So I think this is clever, but I think it really is key to it. It has snowed, but it is not snowing. Mm-hmm. So the sets have that snow, but then it's clear and people are cold, but they're not being snowed on. Mm-hmm. That sets up, like you said, that perfect down home. And then we see the diner. And now this kind of veers a little bit into the couldn't be made today. The bachelor auction, also kind of fun in a small town thing. But if we look a little bit deeper at that, we feel a little bit uncomfortable with that.
Yeah, totally.
But it does set up the really funny gag where Chris Elliott's character wants to go, but he doesn't command much on stage. But we also see it gives us this backdrop of Phil has a thing that no one else has, which is he gets to relive the day and keep those memories, right? And so we see his development as a character. So he goes at first, or I shouldn't say at first, I might get some of the time wrong, but there are points where he's using it to learn things about the area. Then you see him like at one point he like catches a kid who's about to fall, right? But you also see him use that against Andy McDowell. He's trying to basically manipulate her into having sex with him. Not against her will per se, but it is kind of a little creepy. But then you see him going through the phase, good montage of trying to kill himself because he's like, I'm just done with this. And so you see his whole character development. But I just remember reading a quote that Hitchcock said suspense is when the audience knows something that the characters don't. And in a sense, there's a suspense here because we and Phil know stuff that the rest of the characters don't know. And for a lighthearted comedy, it is interesting to set up that tension. And you do immediately think, like with the bank robber, or not bank robber, but the armored car and the money and stuff. Like you could get up to all sorts of shenanigans if you had that advantage, right? Mm-hmm. So that allows us to see, and this film is all about his journey. Right? We don't really see Andy McDowell's Rita change throughout the film. And that's the whole point, is no one else in the film changes. They're the same every day over and over again. Fascinating. Like I said, in retrospect, why didn't someone else do this? This seems so obvious, but what a brilliant premise.
Yeah. And do we see him near the end kind of realize that he is falling in love? Like, I think the first time he kind of tries to woo Andy McDowell's character, it is purely for his own satisfaction.
Right. He's acting everything.
Right. But then he does realize he does want more, and then he's really upset when she kind of realizes what he's been doing. Yeah.
We see him, grow a heart. He is basically Scrooge. Right. Or
exactly.
The Grinch.
Yes.
Right. 3 sizes too small kind of thing. Yeah. And we see him that I think really with that heart it's the old transient drunk fella. Mm-hmm. We see him really get that heart, and he becomes a decent human being. And of course, Act 1, Phil, they're like trapped on the roadway, and the highway patrolman is like, now you got to turn around. He is such a jerk to everyone. And of course, good Phil, bad Phil, right? And maybe this is Bill Murray's magic, is he can be obnoxious but not be hated. I don't know. But that guy really sets up how horrible he is. And for most of the film, Phil is not good.
I was just going to say that. It's fascinating that we kind of are willing to go on this ride with him. I mean, this is a beloved movie. When you bring this movie up, people are like, oh my God,
this is a great film.
And so the fact that so many people are willing to go on this ride with his character, Phil, who, like you said, for the bulk of the movie is a jerk. Yeah. Why are we willing to kind of hang in there. I guess you kind of want to see like what's going to happen. How is he going to get out of this time loop? The first time we watch it. I mean, I think then the second, third, fourth, whatever time that we watch this film, you just are like, oh, this is just a good movie. Oh, wait till this part. Oh, this part's so funny. You know, like I think we're looking for all those classic. I mean, Harold Ramis was a comedy genius, and I think that's what maybe keeps us going, because it is so anti to what we know of movies. Is generally, I mean, Phil, I don't know if we can call him the protagonist, but he's the main character.
Right.
And so why do we hang in with this narcissist, egocentric jerk?
Well, I have to, I think, go back to what I said before. I think it's accurate. It's Bill Murray magic, because I walked away from Wedding Crashers hating Bradley Cooper, right?
For many, many, many years.
Right. And then that kid made A Star Is Born, and all right, I'll let him back.
He won you back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But that has to be it. I mean, and that's why I said earlier that I think there is some magic in the casting. You know, all credit to her. I don't know that Andy McDowell or Chris Elliott necessarily are as critical to this film. I mean, she's got fantastic hair in this film. Just wow.
Classic 80s hair. Well, I mean, she's beautiful. And
Right.
she's almost like, I guess what you would consider like a protagonist. She's kind. She's, you know, a hardworking journalist. She wants to come up and just do this story,
Well,
you know.
and
or she's a producer, probably. I think.
Yeah, and you're right. She is kind of all that is goodness and light. She's Glenn
Yes.
Close in The Natural or what have you. And she's not really, I mean, she's more of a goal.
She's attractive, but yet.
But she serves her main purpose is for him to strive toward, right? This is to attain. I just think that, you know, it's one of these things where the premise is fantastic. The script is well done. It's obviously well shot because it's got some pretty funny moments in it. But I think ultimately you have to give, in my opinion, credit to Bill Murray that he was the perfect casting choice for this role. I just don't, you know, you can't think of this role working with anyone else, really.
I, like you, wasn't always the biggest Bill Murray fan. Maybe more his films than him, but I think you're right. This is why people do consider him a comedy genius, is because of films like this that you can take. You can even make him an unlikable character, and it's a performance that we all enjoy.
Yeah, and I just can't even imagine how difficult that must be as an actor to take a despicable character and make them somehow have enough humanity in them that the audience goes for the ride.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the groundhog before. There was a family of groundhogs that were raised for the production of this film. And one of my favorite scenes when I very first saw this movie in 1993. Oh, wow. I would have thought it was earlier than that. I would have put this in the late 80s. This to me feels like a high school film that I watched. But
yeah, I don't know. 93 feels about right for me.
Is the scene where he's driving with the groundhog and he says, don't drive mad, and apparently the reason that he did say that was because the groundhog was angry and was no longer wanting to be placed on the steering wheel and used as a prop. And so Bill Murray was bitten by the groundhog during that scene twice and had to have anti-rabies injections because the bites were so severe. And I believe after the one in the car, he had to go to the hospital for stitches. That's how bad it was.
Okay. Credit to Murray for hanging in there.
Absolutely.
Ramis says we need another take, Bill.
Yeah, I would be saying many expletives.
Yeah.
To
Some
Ramis
salty
at
language.
That point. Yeah. It would have gotten blue.
Yeah. But when you said that the family was raised specifically for production, the first thing I thought of was I see them in a little go-kart as they're training the groundhog. He's got the helmet on and they're training him to drive. Like,
and they go into the log and out of the log and into the log and out of the log. That's what the training is too. All right. Is there anything else that we may have missed in talking about this classic?
There are, of course, a couple of montages, including, I love it, the Rita slapping Phil montage, always good. Phil attempting suicide montage, maybe a little bit more difficult.
A little dark, but it's still funny, ironically.
Yeah, oddly enough. Phil saving the old guy montage, that's pretty good. They have a couple of walk and talks here, right? And so I assume it was Steadicam. It was after the Steadicam was available. So that was an interesting twist. One thing I noticed, and our friends who are more into fashion could maybe help me out. There was like a Mandarin collar on Phil's dress shirt. Was that a thing in 1993?
I don't know. We'd have to go back and do a little research.
It stuck out to me. And credit, they put dirndl on the waitresses. Classic, good East Coast German, the German St. Pauli girl dress. Very period appropriate for a small town, right?
Yes.
I thought that was pretty good.
And so it's interesting that the film was filmed in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, or it was not filmed where it is set in the film, but it was actually filmed in Woodstock, Illinois, just 50 miles from Bill Murray's hometown of Wilmette, Illinois. And there's a small plaque that reads, "Bill Murray stepped here on the curb where he continually steps into the puddle."
That's fantastic.
There's another plaque on the building wall at the corner that says Ned's Corner, where Phil Connors continually was accosted by Ned Ryerson. And during the Ned scene, you can see a sign for Woodstock Jewelers clearly in the background that doesn't support that they're in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. But
well, it could be a satellite office. So there's many extreme close-ups of the alarm clock going to 6 o'clock, and it's
that kind of an alarm clock. That
I was just gonna bring that up. Those tiles, the numbers as tiles that flipped over. I think everybody in the 70s had one of those.
Totally. That was what you could. Well, before digital LEDs.
It was in between. Yeah, it was before LEDs, but after just the circular wind-up alarm clock.
Right.
And it had the clock radio part. I don't remember exactly how you set the time, but you would set the time and it would come onto the clock radio.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
I wonder, listeners, I would love to know if anybody else did this. If one of those broke, did you take it apart to play with the flippy number thing?
Oh, I'd never seen one that had broken.
Oh, well, that's true. They were pretty hardy. But I believe my mom had one and it broke, or maybe that's when the LED came out and I took it apart because I was fascinated by the wheel of numbers that flipped around.
I sat there and watched the thing and tried to figure out how it worked. It was sorcery.
Things that captivated us in the 70s.
This is before iPhones, right?
Okay, anything else?
No.
Okay, was there any head trauma in?
Yeah, there's quite a bit. So Phil gets whacked in the head by a snow shovel when he's on the payphone at the gas station during Act 1, when he's still super jerk. Rita slaps Phil in the face.
Multiple times.
Many times. He had a montage. Phil shoves Ned Ryerson. Phil punches Ned Ryerson. Phil loses a snowball fight with the townies, which does involve some snowballs to the melon. Rita slaps Phil after he pushes too far multiple times. And lastly, Rita smacks Phil in the face with a pillow during their all-nighter. How cute.
Yeah, he took the most of it, plus those 2 bites by the groundhog.
By the groundhog. Rabies shots, stitches. That's commitment to the role.
Hopefully Bill had a stand-in for some of those slaps. Or they did some good stage
Harold says,
combat.
"Oh, I'm sorry, Phil. We'll see it in the shot. We're going to need you to get hit again."
Right. All right. So, as we've mentioned, Bill made good time with the ladies. So, smoochies?
Smoochie. Yeah, Phil and Nancy smooch in front of the fake fire. Phil and Rita smooch in front of the fake fire. Phil and Rita smooch after his snow sculpture of her. And Phil and Rita smooch after they leave the B&B when he successfully gets to the next day.
Nice. And we also have mentioned driving, but give me a full and complete driving review.
All right. So first of all, gotta love the choice of a white 91 Dodge Ram van for the camera van. Like, well done. Our people thank you, Mr. Ramis. And look how spacious it is inside. This is actually something that we talked about in the Denzel Washington hostage movie. Oftentimes in Hollywood, we cheat the interior vehicles because not only is it hard to get the camera crew in there with the actors, but also it just looks weird because people are on top of each other. I don't know if they did that with this, but I'm pretty sure they did. I think the interiors of that van were probably a little larger than they really were. Okay. Nobody honks his horn but me, okay, pal? I actually like that driving instruction to the woodchuck because only the driver should operate the controls of the motor vehicle. That's all the controls. The pink 74 Cadillac Fleetwood Eldorado does have a wide enough front seat for 3 adult males, and it really puts a whooping on those plywood groundhogs. So if you want to run over plywood creatures, I suggest a 70s era Cadillac. It's going to do good work for that. The red 71 Chevy C10 pickup isn't the optimal vehicle for a car chase, but boy, does that groundhog know how to drive. Like, I'm impressed. Including realistic damage when it goes through the gate. Oftentimes in movies, they don't use the same vehicle, so it was good to see that they kept it, because you could tell that the front grille was damaged afterwards. So tip of the cap to Ramis, or he was cheap, one or the other. And then lastly, that white 68 Dodge Dart is the perfect car for elderly ladies. My grandmother had a Plymouth Valiant, very similar vehicle, in blue. So I totally bought that those old ladies would have that vehicle. But where did he get the floor jack? Those things are heavy, and I don't know if you've ever dragged one around. They are loud. So a little continuity error there, but I like it.
So I don't know if I said this before, but the "Don't Drive Mad" was an improvised line by Bill Murray. And I don't know how they know this in the trivia of IMDb, but it says the line would decades later inspire the title for the Nicolas Cage action horror film Drive Angry in 2011.
All I can think is that the person who made that film told IMDb...
Was a big fan.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Groundhog Day. That's all I can guess.
Shall we go to the numbers?
Let's go to the numbers.
All right. This film in 1993 had a budget of $14.6 million. So like $10 million less than last week's House Bunny. It scores quite high. It gets an 8 out of 10 on IMDb. Critics love this movie, 94%. Audiences were surprisingly less, which at 88%, which surprises me because most people, if you mention this movie,
it's a beloved film.
Oh my goodness. Beloved. A little bit, quite a bit past the moral line at 1 hour, 41 minutes. It is rated PG. It is labeled as a comedy, drama, fantasy. Obviously, if we have a time looping factor that does not occur in reality, to the best of my knowledge.
To the best of my knowledge, but we may have said this already.
We've already recorded this. Domestically, they made $17 million. Worldwide, they made $71.1 million. Adjusted for today, that would be like a film bringing in $184.8 million.
Very successful comedy.
I would say so. I mean, and like I said, I think it was a hit. I'm surprised that it only brought in $17 million because I would have thought in this era, I mean, maybe it's become a cult classic, but I wouldn't have said that. I would have thought it was successful in 1993, but with those numbers, it doesn't. Our
friends on the Long Rewind have told us that it often depends on what came out at the same time.
Ah, good point.
As well as if they had the misfortune of coming out when there's some major event like OJ's car chase or something like that.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Okay, I believe I said this was a Columbia Pictures. It did win 1 BAFTA, and it has 7 or 6 other wins and 17 nominations. So it did okay in the awards, especially for comedy, because generally comedies don't win that many awards. So that does it for Groundhog Day. Let's see what we're going to select a movie and see what we're going to watch next week.
Oh, wow. This is a very singular sensation. It's a chorus line with Michael Douglas.
Oh, fun. I know of this movie. I don't believe I've seen the whole thing start to finish.
I don't think I've seen the whole thing start to finish either. I do know it was a big deal when it came out amongst a certain crowd, but I think I only saw bits and pieces of it. So I'm curious what the whole film put together looks like.
All right, so we're going to watch that one. And you guys, if you want to be in on all the information, watch that before next Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday today. And never forget,
Dodges never stop, and neither do the movies.
Thanks for listening to Dodge Movie Podcast with Christy and Mike Dodge of Dodge Media Productions. To find out more about this podcast and what we do, go to dodgemediaproductions.com. Subscribe, share, Leave a comment and tell us what we should watch next. Dodges never stop, and neither do the movies.